All right, guys. So welcome to the 2018 season of fantasy baseball. I am your champ. I am Joe, and starting off the video, I'm joined by a special guest. You know him as Supreme. I know him as the official first loser to Joe last year, and since he's the only one who actually called in, we're actually going to look over his team. I'll give some analysis about his team and what I think he did right, what I think he did wrong, ways he could improve. But I'm also going to get his thought process and understanding of what he thought was a good idea. You know, what he thought worked for him. Some players he might have liked that people sniped him on. Maybe some trades that he's working on. You know, some insight. So without further ado, here he is. Supreme, you want to say hi?
Hey, what's up, fellas? What's up? How's everybody doing?
Okay, so unfortunately I couldn't figure out how to do this where I could get the video to synchronize with this video, but he's going to be on the audio and he's going to come through that, and you'll hear him over the audio. So first off, we're going to look at the draft that he had. It was according to all the projections.
The best draft.
According to projections on both ESPN and Alexis's site, he was ranked for the lowest in terms of where he's going to finish. Of course, those are roto scoring points, so they actually technically don't mean anything. And plus, it's just projections. So first, I would like to ask, what do you think you did right in the draft, Supreme? I'm on you. Can you hear me?
You're good. You're good. Give me a second. Hold on. I'll be right back.
All right, so Supreme's at work right now. So we're going to try to look at his team and see exactly what he did right. But unfortunately, that's going to take some time. So looking at his team, it looked like he went mostly offense. He has a lot of big mashers in his lineup. If you look at it, he drafted Machado and Stanton back-to-back in the beginning of the rounds. And he added to that team, he added Chris Davis, Adam Duvall, he has Jonathan Scope, he has Joey Gallo. He by far and away has the most power hitters of any team in this league. And that's not even looking at every team's roster. That's just off the bat. He also has Trevor Story and Justin Boyer, and I didn't even look at those guys. So what he's really doing, in my opinion, is he's trying to win runs, homers, and RBIs every week. On top of that, probably OBP because power hitters are notorious walkers. So with that, I think he's punting on average, strikeouts, and steals. I don't see a lot of steal guys in his lineup either. So he's trying to win 4 out of 7 categories on a daily basis on each matchup, which is a solid strategy considering how many masters he had. But then when you actually go to the pitching that he has, it's also not that great. He punted on relievers once again. I think this was a similar strategy employed recently, if not last year. He has a few guys people would consider aces. He has Carrasco and Arrieta. That's up in the air if you consider them aces. Most people in the industry consider Carrasco an ace. I myself in the months now, I would consider him in the top tier. He's a guy that I've known to have on my rosters in years past. And Verlander pitched amazing from second half toward the playoffs, so a lot of people are expecting that to continue. And then when you look up and down, he has Arrieta, he has Chatwood, who is a reliable sleeper pick this year by a lot of people. Not crazy about Jose Urena, but it looks like he's going to stream, so I'm not sure if that's like the last guy on his roster. Fulton Net, which is another streaming type guy. He also has Lester, Fulmer, Teheran, Odorizzi. So he's clearly going all starters. So what he does is a clear, simple plan when you actually look at it. You don't break it down roto by roto. In categories, all you need is 7 categories to get a tie. He's intending to have 4 of them every matchup from hidden. And if he could get wins, quality starts, and strikeouts, which I believe K per 9, then he's going to get 7 categories. Problem is we don't have strikeouts as a category anymore. So when you look at that, it leaves a lot to be desired. Do I know where he's not going to get any save holds, and I don't think he's going to win ERA or WHIP with those categories. So I don't understand his strategy unless this was a K League, because in reality, I think he has a stranglehold on 6 out of the 14 categories, but 6 out of 14 ends you up 0-18 in the end, long run. So I want to get some insight about what he thinks about that. If he's aware of that, maybe. Just one of the benefits of calling in and getting a brief discussion. Do I like the players on his team? Do I see his strategy and do I admire it? Yeah, it's something I would totally implore if I was in that situation. I think he has a pretty good starting staff at the top, and then he's followed up by a bunch of numbers 6 and 7s with high upside. Do I think he's going to win K/9 every week? No, I think he's going to be in the 8s at most with a couple of those guys on the back end, especially if you're streaming. A Verlander 14K per performance doesn't come around that often either. And, just counting on that to pick up the slack for the other guys, I don't think that's a viable strategy. Let's see. Just looking at now I'm going to try to go in depth about his draft. See what I can see into it. Having a hard time right now. Here it is. I think he had a pretty solid draft. What he did was he got 2 great picks back to back with Stanton and Machado. People believe Machado should have been a first rounder. I'm right there with them. Then he went pitcher, Carrasco and Verlander. No flaws there. And then he went to Scope, Davis, Gallo, Arrieta, Story. So he really just attacked offense at every level of the draft. And then he tried to fill up on some high upside. I think he got value late. I think he got Fulmer very late this year, going in the 15th round, late 15th round. I think he got a great value with Teheran as well. And I just think the back end of his draft wasn't too bad considering the price he had to pay for some of these guys, especially what was out there at that point. Just think it's a solid team. So I'm going to pause this right now because I think we have somebody else joining the call. So just give me a second. All right, so that's enough for Supremes. But we have somebody new joining the call. One part owner of Team Cayuga, that is Juan. Juan, you could say hi to the video.
What's going on? It's Juan.
All right. So we're doing audio. I couldn't figure out how to set it up, as I said before. So we're just going to have you coming on the audio side of it, just like a regular radio show. So before I start and look at your team, how did you feel about the draft overall that you had, being that you were the one mainly making the picks on Sunday?
I feel like we were able to accomplish our goal, considering where we were drafting at and knowing how certain people in the draft kind of draft since we've been in the league for a few years. A lot of people have the same tendencies, so I feel like we were able to accomplish our goal early on, set our foundation for the year.
Cool. So just a reminder for everybody: Juan had the 9th pick, and then he wrapped around and got the 4th and the 2nd round, and so on and so forth, snake style. Just to recap, Juan went Scherzer and Sale to start off the draft, so he got 2 out of the top 4 aces right away, which I think was an amazing strategy to attack, where you're already having 2 of the best pitchers in the game, and there's somebody else out there who probably doesn't have even one of them, better yet 2. And then you proceeded to draft Judge with the 9th pick in the 3rd round. How did you feel about the value there?
I feel like it was great value. I really didn't want Judge. Well, not that I didn't. I didn't think he would fall to me. So since he kind of fell, I just took him since he was probably the best available player at that position. If not, I would have probably went with another pitcher. But since he has the potential to be top 10, top 20 type of player, I just felt like it was the right call.
Sweet. So then the next couple of picks you made were majority pitcher. I do notice you got Bumgarner late in the 7th round. You are aware that he's going to miss 2 months and all. Do you feel that he's going to be an ace when he comes back?
Well, it was more a risky pick because knowing that he's going to be out to maybe the All-Star break and the Giants might be out of contention, so it kind of like factor into the decision. But I feel like just with what he's capable of doing, and if my team is a potential playoff contender, having those three, my three aces, which would be like three of the top five guys, it can lead me basically all the way. So that's what kind of went more of a risk reward kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about two guys. The two guys you took after him. You took Ryan Braun and Ian Desmond. Now, those are two guys that are said to have the everyday job, whether it be first base or outfield, respectively. Both of them actually. Are you worried at all about either of them losing playing time this year?
Um, well, I feel with I'll address Desmond first. Desmond had a bad year, I guess health wise, and he didn't really produce what they thought he would. So hopefully this year, if he produces, he's going to be in the lineup, and he'll be either at first base or in outfield. And with Braun, I feel like he's very consistent at his age now. Like he's like around 34, 35, but he's still putting up at least 25, 30 home runs with like a 270 average. And he should be able to see playing time at first base for most of the time, if not in the outfield for sure. But I think if they're healthy, they're going to produce. And Desmond, I feel like, has more upside than Braun, just because he has the potential to steal more bases and he's playing in Coors Field.
Mm-hmm. Are you worried at all about either of them getting injured again this year, knowing that the injury risk with both of them are high?
Yeah, my risk would be probably maybe with Braun getting hurt. But he hasn't, I guess, I don't know. I think it would be more with Braun I'm more worried with.
Mm-hmm. So what's your contingency plan just in case one of those guys to go down, seeing as you only have one guy, Brinson, on your bench?
Well, that's fine. I'm paying attention to the waiver to see, what's available. And I kind of went with that plan as far as like with pitching, to have stacked pitching, because I feel like it's easier to replace certain players or in the outfield than actual starting pitching. And there's a lot of prospects that should be getting called up within the first couple of months, just in case. So trying to make moves on the wire.
No, yeah, totally. And we all know how active you are both on the trade market and on free agency. How do you like the free agency, the bidding so far? Like how it started out, and how do you think it's going to affect the season going forward?
I don't really like it. I was talking to, I think, Gus about this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I like it where it kind of like gives everyone a fair chance to get certain people, but I feel like it should be kind of different but we don't have the option of like, after bidding, you can kind of have like an open market and take whoever's available. But I feel like it's gonna be hard to see, how much money is spent and how much value certain players are. Because I think people are gonna be kind of cheap at first, and then they're gonna spend a lot more later on in the season.
Right. We already see some people already vying for the same couple of people. Definitely not like football, which changes the game. So even in this trial year, we'll see how it works out. Some people may come to love it. Some people may come to hate it. I think it's been okay so far. I think it's been interesting. I still think it's good that we've had these last couple of days to experiment with it and see how it's going. So I definitely think that that's good that we're getting that trial run right before the season starts, so it's not the end of the world. Just looking at your team, I think you definitely have a playoff team. You took a couple of risks late with Hamels, probably just Hamels really. Hamels and Bumgarner and the two injury guys I mentioned. But I think other than that, your draft was really solid. I think you got a lot of value late with the relievers you got. I did see you got Boxberger. I don't believe you drafted him. You picked him up, correct?
Yeah, I picked him.
That's a great pickup. Knowing that he will be Arizona's closer. You're hoping Holland gets onto the roster. But your pitching's far and away the best. I don't know what George was talking about his pitching being stacked. I mean, you have Scherzer, Sale, Martinez, Keuchel at your top four, and that's not even mentioning Bumgarner when he gets back. I don't see you losing many categories in the pitching categories at all this year, to be honest, and that's including K9. You might run into some trouble with if somebody has like six or seven relievers, knowing how some other of the other teams I looked at are. But pitching wise, it's going to be tough to take two or three categories from you week by week. Do you feel the same way? I'm assuming you do.
Yeah, that's kind of what the approach that we wanted to take is to make sure we kind of like dominate pitching because it's easy to get caught up, I guess, with drafting like the best hitters and having stacked lineups, but then you get caught up trying to catch up with pitching. And I feel like this year we wanted to take a different approach to sit under the spectrum.
Are you worried at all about your offense on this team, seeing as it's not one of the better ones in the league?
Yeah, I am. Well, I'm worried just mainly at second base is like where we're kind of worried about with
222 strikeout.
Because I didn't know he struck out so much, and his on base is not as high. But besides that, I feel like we have an okay, like I guess batting lineup. Like we don't need it. We don't. It's not as bad where we can probably steal a few categories hitting wise to be able to win the weekly matchup since our pitching is as dominant as we see it is.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, looking at your roster, I mean, I love the Bregman pick in the fourth round. I mean, people were saying that might have been a reach. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. I thought Bregman was a solid third rounder most everywhere. And I think you got a lot of great value late too. I know Rosario lasted longer than he was expected to. I think my favorite pick of yours was Mancini. That's just because I have a crush on him. I think he's an amazing hitter. He's underrated for what he does. I think he just gets shuffled back in that lineup because nobody, pays attention to anybody past Machado or even Chris Davis. Those are the names they know. And Scope had such a big year, but I think Mancini is my favorite draft pick on your team. And I know you got him super late. Even Suarez, a lot of people are projecting him to break out this year. And where you got him, I think you got him you got him right after 15th and 16th round, respectively, with those two players. So to fill out your back end of those roster, those are two guys that could even expand on their amazing years last year. So I think you got great value late in the draft, more than anything. And I think that's how you get to the playoffs, and that's how you ultimately win the league eventually. But I gotta say, I love your draft, man. Is there anything else you want to comment about your team or the draft in general?
Yeah, I feel like we were able to get a lot of, like what you said, a lot of late value because since we attacked pitching early, by the mid to late draft, people were trying to fix their staffs, and we were kind of able to get whatever's left over from what people didn't want because they needed pitching needs. So it kind of helped us. Like, I kind of like the Moustakas pick. I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but he was projected to go like in the 8th round, and we were able to get him like in the 12th round. So, it's kind of like picks like that kind of help because it's the value that's there of what they're going to give you. And then like a lot of other few hitters that we got kind of late because they kind of fell in our lap because people weren't, they already had their hitting filled. So we were able to get a lot of high B profile type hitters.
Right. I think what we saw with our draft was most of the high end guys going earlier. And thanks in part to what you did. And then in the middle, it kind of slowed down a little bit. And then like once you reached that third tier, a lot of people were grabbing the Paxtons, the Weavers, the Godleys of the world, and they were setting out their staffs. And that's when you really jumped in and said, okay, here are the value plays, and I'm going to grab my guys. And I think that was a great strategy, and I think it really worked out for you. In the end game, I think you have a great balanced team. Clearly, you're pitching heavy, but I think your offense is definitely middle of the pack, and I think that's where you want to be in this league, especially knowing what won last year for myself, knowing I went pitcher, 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 pitcher. I think what you did here is the closest imitation of that, but I think it's an amazing job considering you also got Judge and Bregman in those middle rounds. So you also get the versatility with Bregman, and you get Judge late in the third, where a lot of people were thinking he was a second rounder. So I think your team's probably one of the top 3 in the league. I don't care what projections say because projections don't take into account we're a categories league. At the end of the day, people punt on different categories. So the projections say that you're taking a zero and saving holds, and some people don't have any save holds. But in reality, you would never be taking a zero in a roto league. But in this, it doesn't matter. It's just one category out of 14.
Yeah.
Just yeah, I'm just giving you. If I was to give a grade, I mean, I give you an A, honestly, on your draft just for the first two picks alone. Your strategy that I've seen work in different leagues, I think you're holding true to it. You're nailing the pitching, and we know how pitching has been the last couple of years. So definitely you have a leg up on the competition in that, and then you put together a solid lineup. So I think your team is definitely one to be reckoned with, and not a team that I want to face now or in the playoffs, especially either.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Any other comments you want to make about the draft or anything else?
No, no. I'm just interested to see what with the fab and how it works going forward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's kind of weird. Like the other day, when I put the Brinson pick to the waiver claim, like I woke up the next day to see it, and then it's like, oh, I forgot it goes until 11 o'clock. So it's kind of something to adjust to.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure you'll adjust. You're a quick learner. You know how football works, and now you've had these 3 days to experiment it. So now you know when you go to bed, it doesn't matter. As long as you wake up at 10:30, you could put that bid in. You can see what happened, and then you have the player for that day. So I think the 11 o'clock thing was a good thing in reality, as opposed to going to bed at or even at 11 o'clock and waiting. So at least we have some news of what's going on.
Yeah.
But other than that, man, thank you for calling in. I don't really have anything else for you. I think I said glowing reviews about your team, which is shocking, considering one of my favorite things to do in this league is to beat you.
Yeah, I know.
Just don't bet the farm on trying to win the first half prize this year. That's all I could say.
Nah, I'm changing my approach, man. I gotta play the long game this time.
That's it. Play the long game. All right, man. Thanks for calling in. I'm just going to continue with the video. I suppose you could just hang up, and, I still have Jamie on the other line, so it's fine.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks. All right, so that was Juan, everybody. Juan, give me a good, I would say a good 10, 12 minutes of just good back and forth talking. And that's what I love to do, honestly. I just love to, have a good conversation, see what other people's mindset is. And honestly, I couldn't find a flaw in his draft as much as I want to. And I think you find out with a lot of people in the league, not the Alexises and the Andres of the world, but you find out with the Gusses, the Juans, even Darwinson, you find out a little bit. Gil, he has his players, but those guys, you can't find real flaws with their team, especially the Ruizes. Throw them in there too. I find no flaws with them, and I just find nothing but nice things to say with them. Although I hate playing them, it's part of one of the reasons why I respect their game, and I respect their picks because I see exactly what they're doing, and they always come with a good strategy year in and year out. Just looking over now, I'm gonna go into a broad recap for those that called in and those that haven't called in. Considering it was only one real person. Just talk about each team a little bit, not really go in depth as I did with the people with Juan, who was on the call, or even Supreme when he was here earlier. So I just want to give the first round was a little wonky, if you ask me. I didn't expect Kershaw to go at 5. Every draft that I've had, and this was my 5th one at that point, and even the one after it, Kershaw won in 11th to me in that league. Kershaw never goes 5. I've seen him drop down to 7 or 8, so I was shocked that George took him there. I thought it was interesting. I think Kershaw is the best pitcher in the league. I think we all can agree when healthy he is. I think this is the year he puts it together, honestly. It's a free agent year for him. It's an opt-out year, so he could make more money on it. And honestly, he hasn't given up an arm run all spring. Nobody's talking about it because it's what he's expected to do. But I think we might see the Kershaw of old post maybe a 1.99 whip. I mean, 1.99 ERA with a 0.68 whip. Something crazy, something insane, something we may never see again, and we haven't seen yet. But we know that's in him. But other than that, just looking at the draft, Turner going 6th, Harper going 7th. Goldschmidt dropped to 10. I think prior to the humidor, Goldschmidt was a perennial third overall pick. I couldn't take him there, obviously, and I think the 2 years that I've won recently were because Goldschmidt was on my team. Honestly, I think Goldschmidt's being undervalued. Just what I think. Unfortunately, I'm a guy that doesn't have Goldschmidt anywhere. Why? Because I'm all in on Kershaw this year. Kershaw is the third player on my board in most leagues, and that's why I'm taking him where I take him all the time. But the interesting thing about this year and all the drafts, as opposed to being toward the top 1, 2, or 3, you really wanted to be in the back. You wanted to be in the 11, 12, 13, 14, that kind of turn, because you're just getting 2 first rounders, no matter which way you turn it. I've seen Turner fall all the way to pick 11 before. I've seen Sale and Kluber get taken on that turn. I saw what Juan did. I've seen that from him and other people like him, just taking 2 of the aces right out of the gate, right like that. You can't do that if you're in the first round, you're first overall, you're second overall. You couldn't do it. So I get that, draft strategy has to change certain things. But if you were toward even the late middle or even 6 or 7, you were getting 2 first rounders. Nonetheless, you were getting that upper echelons player. So I think those people have an advantage this year. We'll just look at a couple other things that that I saw, a couple of draft things. Talk about the big major things that were in discussion in the house with Alexis, who was such a gracious host. I want to thank him for that. Once again, I think the video was thank you enough. I mean, I didn't have many nice things to say.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
But I just want to say he did a great job. That was Alexa talking, not Alexis. That's crazy. I was trying to figure out what that was. But just trying to look through the draft right here and see things that I liked. We'll talk about Acuna. If you don't know who he is, then you shouldn't be playing baseball. Fantasy baseball, that is, because he's the top prospect in the league. He's the next quote unquote Mike Trout, for what we've all heard, and a lot of people expect him to be big time, and they expect him to be big time fast. We've got to remember he's only 20 years old, so where he was taken was very, very interesting in this draft. I want to get the exact pick, so just bear with me 1 second, because it was my good friend Andres taking him. Now, if only I could find what his name was. Oh, because he changed his name. Harper got the Bilky. So he took him 7th in the 7th round with the 7th pick. I think people in the house and in the room that day thought it was a reach. I think a lot of us were excited because of how high he reached. This guy's not going to start in majors. What we're all told and what we all learned was he'll be up the 13th or the 16th. There's no in between. There's nothing out there. It's either going to have him for that home opener to start at home, or they're going to have him start as soon as his Super 2 deadline is up. So that's what we've all been told. Could that be different? Yes. Did they do it with Chris Bryant, and Chris Bryant came right up right after the Super 2? He did. So you know what? It's an interesting situation. I think the Braves do bring him up. But you're taking a chance on a 20-year-old kid who has not hit a ball in the majors, and you're taking him in the 7th round. For argument's sake, I'm just going to rattle off a few players that were taken around there. Andrew McCutchen was taken right after him. Jake Arrieta, Joey Gallo, Nick Castellanos, Eric Hosmer, Madison Bumgarner, Ryan Braun, Travis Shaw were in there. I gotta say, I'd rather have any of those players minus McCutchen, because I think McCutchen's done. But that's just a personal belief. I didn't like the park he went to, and he just hasn't been doing it for me. But that's another argument for a whole different series that I don't really want to go into. It was just an interesting pick for when it happened. And it looks like we have a caller in. So we're going to stop. We're going to pause for a second as I get this caller in.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, guys, back to the video. Now we have another caller. So this is very exciting, guys. We have... Did you change your team name? Now I got to find your team name again because it changes.
It's Bryce. Harper. It's Harper got the blicky.
Okay.
That's how it goes.
So hopefully you can all hear him. We'll just call him Harper's team for right now because we're not trying to say that whole name. We're not trying to enunciate all that. So welcome to the show, Andres. First, I would like to ask you, how'd you think about your draft?
All right, so and in the beginning, I was kind of surprised with how many I think good hitters landed for me. Harper, I thought Harper would go fourth overall, so when I saw him slide down, I got really excited. But 2 years ago, when he was healthy, and last year when he was healthy before he got hurt, then I got Chris Bryant. I saw the pitching wave allowed me to get Chris Bryant in the second round, which I was extremely happy with. But then in the third round, I felt like I needed to grab a pitcher because almost all the true aces were gone. So I decided to go with who I think could be a top 5 pitcher, Luis Severino. I know he pitches in the AL Beast, as I think Gus said, but I think he should be able to hold his own. Fourth round, I believe I got Brian Dozier.
Yep.
And I know he's a consistent on base guy, especially in our league. That helps. He strikes out somewhat, but that also comes with power numbers and RBIs for a leadoff spot.
And stolen bases.
And he scores stolen bases. I mean, he'll sprinkle some stolen bases, but I don't know if you saw with all my first 3 batters I chose.
Mm-hmm.
They all sprinkle some stolen bases. So hopefully,
10 or 15,
year, I get about 40 stolen bases with those 3 guys combined. I don't think that's too crazy to think it could happen, but I'm hoping it does. So really, my tactic after the first couple after the first couple picks, I tried to get a mixture of power and some speed. Because I didn't really want to draft with Billy Hamilton or who else?
D. Gordon.
Broxton's still in the league.
He's in the minors. D. Gordon, Malik Smith, Delano Shields, those kind of guys.
Oh, they're going to offer me much else besides stolen bases. So, as you saw in round 7, after I went pitcher, I went Nola, and then I had Robbie Ray. They both have opinion, but I really want them for their floor, which I think Robbie Ray in the Humidor now is going to really help him, even though he took a huge step up last year. And then I went with Ronald Acuna. Everybody flamed me for that, but I mean, I picked him at 79, and I legit think he's going to be the top 70 player this year. So we can see at the end of the year with the player rater, but if he can hit me 20 home runs and steal me 20 bases at a good clip, I believe he's going to be batting right in front of Freddie Freeman. Mm-hmm. So I think they should put him in front of him just for protection.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah,
what do you think of Robbie Ray's spring? Are you worried at all?
To be honest, I don't really look at spring numbers too much. I mean, obviously, if your player's having a great spring, it's to brag about. But what do you have his numbers in front of you?
I don't have his exact numbers. I know he was walking a lot of batters. He was doing what Robbie Ray does. He was striking out batters, but he was getting hit hard, and he was walking. Like 5. He had one game where he walked 5 guys in 2 innings. Kind of like that, the typical Robbie Ray.
Yeah.
Some people were worried about it. I just want to get. Obviously, you're not worried where you drafted him. I was just wondering if you had any worries going in.
Any concerns, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 years ago, all the fantasy gurus saw this potential breakout that he had last year coming because they saw the strikeout potential, they saw the bat missing potential, but then the walks were killing him. Mm-hmm. Last year, the walks still killed him last year. If you look at the numbers. It's not like he was lowering his walk per 9. I think it went down barely, but what he was doing was striking out a lot. I think his hit per 9 was something stupid, like I think 6. It was amazing. So I know that's the risk that he's gonna have. He might have a week that he might blow my whip, but then there'll be days that he's on. So I mean I know there's risk with him. He's not Kershaw, but he could have Kershaw-like games. So I know. I'm not too worried about it.
No, good. I agree with you. I think Robbie Ray was a great breakout last year. I mean, you have to pay the price this year, unfortunately. I think the Humidor is going to help him. It's definitely going to help that BABIP that he has. So I do like Robbie Ray. You were on Acuna. You were going to go to Sano, I believe, right?
Yes, I had Sano afterwards, after Acuna, the Acuna reach. Have you seen Miguel Sano's spring? I'm super excited.
I'm super excited he didn't get suspended. Forget what you think about what happened. We're not going to touch political, on this recap. But Sano, we know when he plays, he's a monster, and we know he's having a great spring. And I think Minnesota has a good improved lineup too. So I think I like Sano. I mean, I personally would never take him because I'm just not a Sano fan in terms of what my roster construction is. But for your team, I think it's a good fit, especially where you got him.
Yeah, a lot of my mixture of players, they don't. I don't have any like D Gordons. They're not going to strike out Mookie Betts, but most of my guys do strike out. So I'm not too worried about losing that category every week or being close to losing it every week. But like you said, he avoided the suspension that everyone thought he gotten. This spring, he cut down his strikeout rate, which if he could do that and do what Sano does, his batting average should go up, his home run, his production should go up in general. So, you got to put the ball in play to get hits. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, he crushes the ball whenever he hits it, whenever he makes solid contact. Yeah. So we know that for sure. We know he has one of the highest hard hit rates in the game. Then you took a surprise pick with Conforto. I know that was a big discussion that day, especially where he was going to go, and especially that if he didn't go to you, there was going to be some really fisticuffs to fly in that room if you didn't grab Conforto. Do you feel that he's not rushing back? Are you worried at all he's rushing back too fast?
All right. So his original bring back date was supposed to be May 1st. That's what they were aiming at. They noticed that he was recovering faster than what they expected. I think the initial May 1st was more of a date just to be safe because he is a star hitter in that lineup. He's probably our future. So I assume like that's what they wanted to do. Like same thing what they're doing with Daniel Murphy. They're giving you May date, but he could come back earlier. But I don't know. With star players, you kind of don't want to rush them because last year the Mets kind of learned that lesson the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
I did feel the pressure in the draft room. We spoke about Conforto drafting him when he fall, and everybody's like, I don't know, I might reach for him. So, I mean, at 103, I legit think Conforto is a top 100 easily. I think he's a top 10 outfielder. But obviously, I had the Mets bias. But last year, before he got hurt in the most freaky way ever, with his shoulder injury, he was on. He was batting. I mean. You get high and cold during the season, but I think
I have the numbers for you. He
290 hitter with 35 home run potential.
Yeah, he had 27 homers and 373 at bats. He batted 280. He had an on base of 384 in that limited time. So imagine if he had a full season, what those numbers could actually look like. It would be Judge like.
Him and Aaron Judge were head to head. I mean, I know Yankee fans might hear that and be like, get out of here, but they were legit. Like, I think Judge had like 33 home runs and Conforto had 27 before the injury. So,
no, you're absolutely right. I don't mind the pick at all. I mean, Bumgarner went to a few rounds earlier, if not just a round earlier, a couple of picks. But I think that's a safer bet because he's coming back earlier, and we know what he can do.
And they're saying a week away. They're saying all he needs to get 60 at-bats. So I feel pretty comfortable with that, just waiting a week for Conforto.
Mm-hmm. Is there anybody else you want to talk about past there in your draft that you're really excited about, that you got value on in your draft?
Yeah. I love my Justin Smoke pick. I think it was at 151 or something like that. A couple rounds earlier, I saw Greg Bird. And I saw, what's the first baseman from Oakland?
Matt Olson?
Yeah, he got chosen before Justin Smoke,
and
I think he's in that tier. I think he might be even better than him.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how the season plays out. But last year he had his breakout year. Finally, he plays in very hitter friendly and a good lineup right behind Josh Donaldson. So I mean, I think people went high with first baseman when there's so many options later in the draft. So I kind of punted first base for that reason. Later on in the draft, I mean, I have the Mets bias, but Matt Harvey looked really good in the spring, like better than he's had. I mean, the last 2 years, we know how bad he's been.
Mm-hmm.
He's really a flyer pick. I think I had him like third to last pick.
Yeah, he went in the 21st round. Those are just crapshoot picks, so can't fault you for taking anybody past. I think the 15th round. I don't think anybody's gonna fault you for your reaches there because at that point, that's just you're trying to win the league with some of those picks. If one of them hits,
yes.
And Harvey, we know what he's capable of.
The way I saw it, I was watching every Harvey spring start because, obviously I'm a Mets fan and I want to see how he comes back from surgery or whatever. And him pitching in the National League is amazing. Him pitching in the National League East Division, how many games is super amazing. So if he can be a 3.5, 3.6 hit pitcher with a regular pitcher, I don't need him to be anything special, for my seventh starting pitcher, I feel pretty happy with that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, at that point, I mean, if he turns out to be special again, I mean, I think you have a big chance to really cash in on that value, and plus you get the added bonus being a fan.
And if he's not, he's my 20th round pick. I could just easily
He'd
drop
be a
him.
waiver,
So that's
yeah,
how I felt
yeah.
about that pick.
Are you worried at all that you took a few guys that don't have the closer job? For example, Bedrosian's not going to have the job. AJ Ramos isn't going to have the closer job. Were you targeting that specifically, or that's because you thought they were going to be the closer?
I was targeting that. Well, last year we changed our league from a saves league only to a holds and saves league.
Mm-hmm.
I actually prefer having the lights out setup man because they're gonna have more holding situations versus having a closer, which he's gonna have less. He's gonna see the ball less than a setup man.
Right.
In my opinion. I mean, there are those games that pitchers might go 8 innings, but when's the last time we had a consistent pitcher going 8 innings nowadays? It's pretty comfortable, strong. DeRozan kind of let me down last year, but I think this year he has the stuff for it. The lights out stuff. He should have K9 about 11 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like most of my relievers are going to offer lights out strikeouts, and they're mostly setup, man. I think I'm pretty sure that was my tactic. I wanted to pack up on the holds.
Right. So just looking at your team from an opening day standpoint, I'm sure you're waiting for Conforto to go on the DL so you could pick up another guy. Are you at all worried that you're not going to have the roster flexibility because you invested all your bench spots in pitching?
Yeah, I am worried about that. We know baseball's a long,
especially the week one where it's 11
season.
games,
And I
11
feel like,
days.
Yeah, exactly. So like, as a test trial, like I have guys like Harvey and some relievers that I want to see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it might be a bad decision because you know how baseball. Those guys can easily go. If they're not performing, I could pick somebody up, a fresh pick or a guy that has a hot bat just to line them. Because like you said, I don't have any backup bench players right now until Acuna comes up.
Right.
But so that's 2 weeks is basically a test trial. I mean, I know I'm facing Jose and Darwinson, so that's an easy W. So I'm not really too worried about that, you know.
Yeah. So one thing I did with Juan is I went through his draft and I just tried to give it a grade based on overall, since as a bonus for calling in and discussing your team. I think your first and second round picks were home runs. I don't think you could do better than that, where you got freaking Chris Bryant and Bryce Harper. Technically, they're both coming off down years because Harper got hurt in the middle of his MVP year, and then Bryant, everything he did not go right for him. I think those are two amazing picks, especially where you got them. Do I like the Severino pick? No, but that's not because I'm not a Severino guy. But the explanation that you give, at that point in the draft, if you wanted a pitcher of that caliber, you needed to get him there. So I totally understand that. I think you have a lot of upside with your starting rotation, depending if Price comes back. Last year, he was going, before he did get hurt, he was going in those middle tier rounds right around the Robbie Ray this year. So where you got him, I think he has upside. A lot of people believe he'll return to form. Some people don't. If he could be the ace that we know he has been only 2 years ago, I think you have a great starting rotation along with Nola and Alex Wood. I think your starters are very underrated. I don't think people give you a lot of credit for the draft you had in terms of the starting pitching. I think your first 10 rounds were really solid, without a doubt. Offense, I just feel your offense is too boring, but boring sometimes isn't a bad thing. I don't think you have enough speed, but I think you and I both knew that coming into this. But you have a lot of power. Smoke, Bryant, Harper, Sano, even Conforto, as we were saying. Those guys all provide a lot of power. When I mean boring, you have guys like Longoria, you have Bradley, you have Dozier. Even though he's a 30 home run hitter, he's boring. You know what I mean? That's why he doesn't get all the flair.
I agree with you.
But I think your lineup is solid, and I think you know what you're doing. You're not reaching for steals. You're not drafting Billy Hamilton. You're not trying to pick up a guy that's going to steal you 20 bases because it doesn't matter. It's only one category out of 14. And I think your pitching is actually one of the top. I would say top five in the league, honestly. Just with the guys you have. I mean, could things go wrong? They could go wrong with guys that are getting drafted in the first round. But I think your pitching is really underrated and really solid. I like your strategy where you went for guys that are lights out relievers as opposed to just getting the save hole categories. You're more worried about the ratios, the WHIP, ERA, and K9. So I definitely like that. I think there are better relievers for you out there on the wire that you could explore, especially for Bedrosian, if I was you.
Okay.
But I like the Harvey pick. I mean, it's a wild card. I mean, Stroman at that round, late where you got him too, is a wild card. But I would say you have one of the better drafts in the league, even though you might have got played up for it. I think you have a solid team, and I think this team could definitely compete and probably make the playoffs. Granted, you don't do nothing stupid like last year.
I'm not trading at all. That's what
No.
I'm gonna put a Jorge. I'm putting a Jorge this year. I'm not trading at all.
No, you really shouldn't. I just think you know where you need to upgrade. I don't like the catcher, but granted, Gaddis, he rose up the draft boards in February because for the simple reason they said he was going to be the everyday DH. Personally, I just think Houston has too many guys, for not enough spots as it is. But other than that, I mean, you have high upside, you have high boring guys that have high floors as opposed to the upside, which is good because you know what you're going to get. And at the end of the day, if you tell me what I'm going to get as opposed to what I can maybe get, I'd rather have what I know I can get. And if it's going to get me to the playoffs, that's all I need. How do you feel about the new free agent bidding system? Andres, you still there? All right, I think we might have lost. Oh, no, he's back.
I'm back.
I thought I lost you for a second. So just to go off the topic of the draft, because I think we touched on everything. We touched how you feel and a little recap of what I said. How do you feel about the new bidding system for free agents in the league?
I love it. I think it's the best system. I feel like if you really want that guy, don't talk about it. Prove it. Everybody has the same shot. We don't have, like last year, Cody Bellinger came up, and I remember Gus snatched him so quick. I thought I was quick on it. I went to the wire 2 minutes before, he picked him up, and that was a game changer.
Right.
So that will happen this year. If Cody Bellinger comes up, whatever the case be, everybody has a fair shot of getting him, and put your money where your mouth is. I like that.
No, I agree.
Like that.
I agree. Juan had different sentiments, as you'll hear later when this video is posted. I think it's going to have a good impact in terms of what you said, and I think that's what the purpose it's going to serve and that it should serve. The only thing that does suck is that it's not a free fall until lineups lock, which does suck because that's what fantasy football is. But I think going forward, it processes every day. It has a set time. I think the set time actually alleviates most of that because it's at 11. It's so early, and most of us are working day jobs anyway. So we could actually have our finger on the pulse and make that decision that day. Is there any other comment you want to make about anything relating to the league or anything in general?
No, nothing else. I mean, this is my third year with you guys, and it's probably my favorite league. So
yeah,
just keep the shit talking up, keep the competitiveness. I love it, and hopefully I win. I went to the playoffs for the first time last year, and I'm trying to come play your belt, bro.
Yeah, if you just don't make the moves that you made last year in terms of you had the winning team, but you just threw it away.
I had terrible trades. Yeah,
you really did. But yeah, thanks for joining this recap show. We're already 47 minutes in already, where I thought it would be like a 20-minute video max. But thanks for calling because honestly, that's what people want to hear. Honestly, it's not as fun if it's just me talking to the camera.
I agree. Yeah, I appreciate all the hard work you do. I know making these videos isn't easy, but we all appreciate your analysis.
Thanks, man. Thanks for calling.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right. Bye. All right, guys. So that was Andres. I'm going to take a brief pause as I get more coffee. All right, and we're back. For a second there, I thought the video had stopped, and then that would have been fun because then I would have been like Alexis and have the 2-part videos. I feel with the coffee, like, I feel like Stephen A. Smith and all that stuff, talking all that shit and whatnot. So it was ironic that Andres called when he did because for the simple fact that he showed up right when I was just blasting him on the Acuna pick. And honestly, I think that was the worst pick, as I actually really went in depth about his draft. Just going in, I think you see how many sentiments I with the projections have him middle of the round, middle of the pack, 7 or 8, 6, 7 or 8. But his pitching staff is really good. It's underrated, better than what I thought at first glance, and it has the potential to be one of the top fives. Not to rival Wands or anything, but it's pretty good. Going back, the projections say some crazy stuff, and at the end of the day, what I was talking about with the last couple guys, that our roto scoring is different than our league, and you can only take projections so far because they're based off of roto scoring. Excuse me. It has me third. It has Antonio second, and it has Gus first. Big surprise there. But in reality, that doesn't matter. It's a weekly game. Anything can happen in a week. Fantasy football teaches us that in day one. That I could have a team full of scrubs and third receivers, and they'll beat your team full of ones. It's just the way it is. It's any given week. It's any given Sunday. Baseball's a little less lucky, but at the same time, I could have a guy get hot that you'll never hear about again. I mean, I could have Craig Shelton, Chris Shelton, I think his name was, Frank Francisco a few years back, Justin Smoke last year, Randall Gritch. I throw a name out there of a guy who's not even in the league anymore. I mean, they all have this amazing year. They could be the best player for one game, or 1 year you have the Phil Humber perfect game, stuff like that. It's just baseball, and I think that's the beauty of the sport and what it tells you. But at the end of the day, I could have a team that's just better than your team that week, and that's all it needs to be. It doesn't need to be the best team in the league. I could be the best team in the league for 23 weeks and still not win the championship, because it's just a game of randomness, especially with head-to-head categories. So what we all do is just try to be the best that given week, whoever you're up against week one, and then so on and so forth for the next 18 weeks, and hopefully make the playoffs. If we're fortunate enough, we get a bye, and if we have a bye, we can prepare for those next two matchups that we have ahead of us. That's just the format that I go through in my head. That's what I do. I get the guys I like. I reach for them. I just, I go for the guys that I like, and I have no problem paying the price. I do a different strategy each and every year. I try to zig when other people zag. I think that's been most effective. When you think you have me figured out, I try to incorporate something else, a new wrinkle. It doesn't always work, as you saw with my reliever strategy two years ago. That shit crashed and burned, and I pretty much flushed it down the toilet the week before, made a bunch of trades, and tried to win in the playoffs. But nonetheless, you make the playoffs, you get a chance to dance, you can make some noise in the playoffs and really win. I just want to go through just a few teams that I like. I really love what Gus and Ruiz did. Every year, in and out, they always have an amazing team. Both of these guys. Last year, not so much with the Ruizes. I don't know what happened. I know you guys have a lot going on in your personal life. I know you have families. I know you're getting married. Congratulations. I know how that is. I'll be doing that next year. So I totally understand that baseball comes second. But for most of us, this is a great escape. I think this league has been a savior for most of us. It kept me in a lot of contact with the fraternity, guys that I probably would not have talked to past this point. And honestly, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you guys and getting to know you guys, and just sentimental moment. Enough of that. Back to the shit talking. But when I really look at your teams, it's like, damn, how does this guy get Goldschmidt and Votto on the same team? How's that even fair? For referencing Gus. I think he took Jansen too early, but that's just my personal belief. The industry says that he took him in the third round right when he's going. I'm not an Andrus guy. I never have been. You'd think I would be, considering he doesn't strike out. But I think Andrus is one of the most overrated players in fantasy for the last 5 years. Last year, he finally had his breakout. He's like 31, I think, or maybe 32, maybe older. He's the most boringest player I've ever met. He's one of the players I hate. He's just one of the guys I would never have on my roster. Just looking at it, I think my favorite pick of the draft was when I got sniped on Travis Shaw by Gus. I don't know, it's because we drafted before and I got Shaw and I probably sniped him. But man, he took him 2 picks before I was going to take him, and I was literally in shock. I thought nobody would be in on Shaw. This guy was right on Shaw. It was amazing. And I totally appreciate it. I think knowing that Real Muto was hurt wasn't great for Gus. And then he chose Brantley early too, but he knew how I was going to draft. I think it was funny because I think him and I like the same amount of players. And Gus, if you're watching this, it's no disrespect, man. I admire your game. I appreciate everything about it. And I think you and I have a lot of similar interests, the way we like to build teams. We're both fans of Carpenter. We're both fans of Goldschmidt and Votto. We just like the same type of player, and we structure our teams differently. I try to go more strategy-based. You go more overall, that I want the best team overall that's going to help me win week in and week out and not focus on the strategy. So we have two strategies, so to speak. But I really like your team. I like the guys you got. I didn't know anybody else knew about AJ Minter, but there you are, taking him in the 20th round. Like, what the hell do you know that I don't know? And it was amazing. You took Ryan McMahon, dropped him. You took Peraza, just guys that I normally have on my draft board or I have on my roster. So I just want to give a lot of kudos to you. I'm totally biased, and it looks like we have another call coming in. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Tone? Tone? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Tone? All right, so that got exciting, but it turns out Antonio was just in the bathroom. So I wish I could edit that part out, but he just couldn't join the call. If he does call, I'm probably going to be on this for another 6 minutes. So yeah, 6 more minutes to do it. Just want to go over Ruiz's team because that was another draft that I actually liked. Of course, they got Arenado. How could I not like it? Another guy that's been on my championship team the last 2 years. So it's no coincidence that the last 2 teams that I described, Goldschmidt, Arenado, it makes total sense. Also, he has JD Martinez. Might as well have just wrote down what I did last year and copied it. I think he has a solid team. I mean, I love the Albies pick in the 9th round. And then he freaking stole my boy, Luke Weaver, right when I'm about to draft him. We all know how I feel about Luke Weaver. I think Luke Weaver is one of the next aces in the making. He doesn't have wipe away stuff, but I think he knows how to pitch. I think he's a Cliff Lee of the future. I mean, not the same stuff, not the same repertoire, but that kind of pitcher, that kind of like stat-wise pitcher, where he's not going to blow you away, but he knows how to pitch. And I think his spring has supported that. I think he got some pretty good players late. I think getting Josh Hader. I don't know how the hell you guys know about these guys. You guys must be listening to the same stuff and reading the same articles I read. I just give you a lot of credit. I think where he drafted Mike Zunino, if that's what you're going for on a roster, or if you could sacrifice the case, I think Zunino's a top 5 catcher. Maybe not in this league, but if he could hit 30 home runs and he's been progressing upward and we know he was a first-round pick, I like Zunino a lot. And he got Corey Dickerson late. I think I'm off the Dickerson bandwagon ever since he left Coors 2 years ago, which is unfortunate because I was all in on him. But it says another team. I think it was the Luke Weaver pick that I really like in the 10th round. I think it's a great value. So kudos to him. He took him literally right before me because I took Godley right after him, which I also love that pick. So there's nothing against it. So I'm just going to go. I think I've roasted George enough on his picks. When George gets to the draft room, man, he has his little sheet, his Carabao plant my flag list, and he just doesn't get it done. He's always there. He's always upset, and he just doesn't seem to always execute on the plan he wants to execute. I don't know why it is necessarily, but his teams are normally competitive for the most part. He hasn't won in about 6 years, but he still claims about being a back-to-back champion. I didn't like his draft. Rarely do I ever. But I think his best pick was that Adrian Beltre pick in the 10th round with the 8-10. I don't have an exact number on it. I love that. I don't think Beltre's done. I think he's a solid player. I think he's undervalued because there's so many up-and-coming third basemen. But I definitely like him a lot. I'm not surprised he got Trey Bruce, but actually... Jay Bruce has been solid, and as boring as he is, you know what? I like that pick. And I'm not crazy about his Amed Rosario pick, but you know what? If you're going to have a favorite team, and How you doing, fantasy? Root for your favorite players. I can't fault that. But just what I've seen up and down from this roster, it doesn't jump out to me. I mean, I love the starting pitching of Kershaw, DeGrom, and Darvish. I think he has three aces right there. I do think Darvish is an ace, and Tanaka, but I'm not crazy at all about his offense. I think his offense will be easy to beat, and I think if you can find enough pitching luck, I think you can find an easy way to beat him. I don't see him making the playoffs. Just looking over a couple other teams, I'm surprised that Gill did not get D Gordon. If we're talking about things that surprised me during the draft, a lot of people were surprised Domingo Santana fell where he was. ESPN had him overranked. I think that's it at the end of the day. I edit my pre-draft ranking, so I have no idea where he was expected to go. But where he went is no surprise to me. I don't think he should be drafted unless it's like in the 200s, because honestly, he doesn't have a playing spot. That's the end of the day. That's the end game. You need a spot to play to put up numbers. I think the best player last year that didn't have a starting job was Adam Lind. And look, he still doesn't have a job. And there's other guys like Melky Cabrera, Jose Bautista, who don't have jobs. This guy's on a team and he doesn't have a job. Looking at other teams, I do like Darwinson's team. I think he has a solid team to start off. I think Garrett Cole was getting overdrafted. He's being drafted like he did something last year, and he absolutely sucked last year. I don't care what you tell me. And he's going to an American League park. Everything that tells me that he's going to be better is only because the Houston Astros are an amazing team. Nothing that he did changed. He went to a worse environment to pitch in. He also went to a worse I wouldn't want to pitch in the AL West, considering that I was pitching in the NL Central, just because, I have to face another batter. And on top of that, those lineups that are coming over there, his big concern is what? Home runs. What's the problem? What do the Oakland A's do? They hit home runs. They don't do anything else. They all they do is hit home run. They have Matt Chapman, they have Matt Olson, they have Chris Davis. It's absolutely nuts to think that he was being drafted so high. That's one pick I really hate. That and the Buxton pick, because I think I've been burned by Buxton one too many times in my life, and I think I'm a little salty about it, considering he's only 25. But at the same time, he broke out in the second half. He broke out in September last year, 2 years ago, and then he breaks out in the second half. If you're going to tell me he's going to do that for a full season, then yeah, I'll take it, and that's where he deserves to be, but I just don't see it with him. Just going off other picks, I like that Brett Gardner pick on his team in the 15th round. That's definitely a value. I think Gardner's being totally underrated, especially if he's leading off. If Judge leads off, okay, then I throw that Gardner love out the window, but they're not. The Yankees aren't that stupid to do that. I disagree with that totally. Scott Kingery in the 18th. I don't know what you knew before about before any of us knew that day, but good stuff on that. And then you backed it up with Cesar Hernandez, so that was definitely a pretty smart pick. And I give you the utmost credit for it, because you know baseball. A lot of people, nobody questions your baseball knowledge, but we don't consider you like a Mundial elite. A lot of people don't reference what your opinion is, but you put together solid picks, and I don't think you're exactly regarded as a wealth of baseball knowledge as some other people in the league. And you know a lot about baseball, more so than you let on to know. So I want to give kudos to that, and I want to bring awareness to it for sure, because this is a good team. And last year you had a good team too, and the year before that you had a good team, and you were the guidance behind Tone's team. So we all know where that came from. So I just want to give some awareness to it and some appreciation as well. Darwinson, you're baseball savvy, and that's not taken lightly on, and I like to shine some light on it. I went through Alexis' team. I think we all saw how I felt about it. I take back what I said about the playoffs. He's not making playoffs. It's Alexis. He's going to make one deal. He's going to trade Greg Holland. He's going to trade for Greg Holland and Nate Jones and give up somebody like JD Martinez or something. He's just going to make a trade that costs him the year. Looking at Tone's team, he got lucky with Blackman falling to 8. I know he was going 4th in something. In some places. Oh, we have a call. Hold on, we have Ari. So I'm gonna let Ari say hello. What's up, Ari?
What's going on, fellas? I don't know where I jumped in on.
So basically, I'm just doing a draft recap. So you're just talking to me. That's why it's just gonna be audio of you. I can't synchronize the video, but we spoke with your team. We spoke with your companion, your significant other Juan, earlier about the draft. Do you have any thing you want to say about your draft or the league in general, Ari?
DD. I'm gonna call it right now. DD. Everybody's sleeping on.
Can you respond to George and tell him the video's still going? If it's not too much trouble, because I'm on the computer, it's way too hard. I got too many things going on.
All right, let me see if I can do it.
You can continue talking. Yeah, no, I'm gonna continue talking. You'll see later in the video. I did Juan's, your team and Juan team about for 20 minutes. We spoke about the team and whatnot. Give Raven reviews. I'm not gonna do it again with you because that would just be counterproductive, and I'm already an hour into this video. I'll just ask you a few questions about what kind of insight did you have on the team, the decision making, or was it mostly Juan? I think we all want to know that.
No, I mean, Juan and I spoke, especially with the pitch going 2 pitches, 1 and 2. I mean, I think our strategy was go pitch heavy, man. I'm not, and I've always been a fan of the home run, so I'm not. If you could tell, that was all me in terms of wanting those big bats.
No, yeah, definitely getting Judge where you got him. I think that was my biggest point with him. Aside from the pitching and how you guys had the best pitching rotation. Just grabbing Judge where you did in the late 3rd round, I think that was an amazing value. And I think it's good that you both have a player from your favorite team, somebody you could root for and watch, and actually have a rooting interest. Be like, we have that guy, let's root for him. Have you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we were Judge just felt to us, but
Yeah.
My Yankee, and I want to put this on record, is Didi. Didi's gonna kill, especially when we got him, I think.
So you're not worried about Didi at all this year? You think he's going to be a top 5 shortstop?
Nope. Yep.
All right, that's a bold prediction. That's the first bold prediction we had on the show. Probably outside from all this shit that I've already spoken about other players. Yeah, I've had nothing but nice things to say. I called your team a playoff contending team. I took Juan's perspective from everything. He said you guys worked well. And just seeing how you guys came together, it was a shame you weren't there because that would have been a sight for that would have been a sight to see while we were in the draft room, seeing how you guys were discussing and stuff. But I know he was texting you because I was sitting right across from Juan. Do you feel that do you feel you're the top team in the league by any chance?
I mean, at this point, yeah, because I think our pitching
Is far and away the best?
untouchable.
Yeah.
Come knocking, fellas. Once your pitches start going down, come knocking.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that strategy. I think where you guys were picking, where those pitchers fell to you, I think that was an awesome strategy. I'm sure you guys talked about that beforehand, behind closed doors. I just think just looking at your team again, man, it's just a solid team. It's going to be one of those teams that's tough to beat, and one of the teams you don't want to face before the playoffs or even in the playoffs.
Yeah, so I mean, my goal is stay healthy. But other than that, I think we're in great shape right now.
Right. Yeah, I think you guys, I commended your picks of Mancini and Suarez. I don't know if that was you or Juan, but I think you guys had a lot of good draft picks. The only ones I questioned were about injury-prone guys from Desmond and Braun and Bumgarner. But other than that, I looked up and down your roster. I tried to find flaws. I couldn't find much, and I have you guys easily making the playoffs.
Yeah, I just have a question. I didn't hear though. Obviously, I just jumped in. Where's that punk Andres ending up?
He has an underrated pitching staff. He actually was on the call a couple, I would say about 10 minutes before you actually hopped on. I think he could. He's middle of the pack. I think he's going to make the playoffs. I think he'll be in the 6th or 7th seed, to be honest. I think he has a good shot. his draft wasn't as bad as it seemed because of the Acuna pick. But I think he has with his rotations underrated. It has a lot of guys that could blow up, but a lot of guys that might do something really good. And I think he has a chance to make some noise.
Yeah, I do like his pitching staff, but I just hope they get hurt. Like I hope
Right.
everybody else's players get hurt.
I mean, any pitcher could get hurt. Any player could get hurt. That's the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
And especially with the 10-day DL, that's what we're all looking at. I mean, guys are already hurt before the season started, and it's killing us. But we just got to pray for that's honestly that's the main thing. That's the thing that none of us could prepare for. You could draft a guy that's never been hurt before and he gets out for the year, or you could draft a guy that's been injured his whole career and he has a healthy season. You just don't know.
And overall, who do you think? Not in terms of just the team, but players that are gonna sleepers in fantasy right now.
Man, this is perfect. I'm glad you called. It's like I'm getting interviewed now. I was going through some guys. If you look at guys on my team, there's a reason they're on my team. There's a reason I reach for them. But guys that aren't on my team, I was talking about Luke Weaver earlier. I think he's going to be the next big ace in the Cliff Lee kind of like ace kind of thing. I was talking about Trey Mancini, that's on your team, and how much I love that pick. I was talking about middle relievers kind of guys that are going to be closers eventually, like AJ Minter and Josh Hader and a few other guys. I was talking about just trying to look over a couple guys who are going to be next kind of sleepers kind of guys. I think a lot of people are on Mike Clevenger. I know Tone is, but that's because all the things that he listens to. I think Clevenger has a chance to break out. I just don't think he's as good as everybody thinks he is. There's a reason he's getting taken 200. I'm not big on Barrios this year. But if you look at my team, I'm a huge Delino the Shield guy. I'm a huge Zach Godley guy. I think Garrett Richards is going to return to being an ace again.
Lies.
I'm avoiding. I think Ketel Marte is a guy on free agency that guys should be looking at. I like the rookies. I think if Willie Calhoun comes up and he finds a spot, if they find a place for Ryan McMahon to find a place in Colorado to start, then I think he'll be good, considering he made the roster. I think Mike Zunino at catcher has a chance to be top 5. Just a few guys that I'm just like spinballing right now. And then I think what happened a lot in this draft is a lot of the boring guys, the Kyle Seagers of the world, the Adrian Beltres, they fell later, as opposed to the upsides like the Byron Buxton, the Tommy Phams. You know what I mean? Did somebody else join the call? George, is that you?
Yes, it is. Hey, girls.
All right. So what you walked into is the draft recap. I'm at 1 hour and 10 minutes, and soon my computer will be dying, so I probably have to cut it off at 1:30. You are about like the 5th guest on the show, which is amazing that I've had this much interaction. Ari's on the call right now too, but considering how I did his team with Juan earlier, we were just doing a light talk. So Ari, you don't mind if I talk to George, do you?
No, not at all.
All right. So I was given an overall recap for those who hadn't called in, but we could go in depth about your team if you would like.
No, bro, I'm cool either way. You can
All right.
either do what you were just doing, where you kind of just going pick by pick, or like 10 picks at a time and say stuff, or I'm cool with whatever you're doing.
Well, I'll do a quick thing about what I thought about your team, but I'll give you a chance. How do you feel your draft went?
I feel like I abandoned hitting, and I made up for it late, but I'm not sure if I made up for it well late.
Right. Prior to you calling in, I kind of tore your team apart. I kind of tore you apart in saying that every year you come in with a strategy and it never works out. You have your little sheet of paper and it just falls apart. And I think once again you proved it again this year. I think you have a good pitching staff. We're not gonna discount anything. I think you have 3 aces with the potential for 5 with Castillo and Tanaka, depending if Tanaka bounces back and Castillo ascends. I love your Adrian Beltre pick, but after that it got really, really sketchy of what you did in terms of offense. But I think you've already addressed that. I have no problem with where you took Posey right after Contreras. Like I've said, I've been seeing Posey go in the fourth round in most of my leagues. A lot of people still love Buster Posey, but I'm surprised he fell. I guess I was the only Posey lover in this league, and once I took Sanchez, that changed the game. But what you did at the top, you got Kershaw and Rizzo. You got two first rounders right there, as far as I'm concerned. I'm all in on Kershaw. I have him in every league but this one and another one. So that shows how much I believe in Kershaw this year. So I think Kershaw is going under 2 this year in terms of ERA, and I think he's pitching 200 innings as well. I love the Darvish pick. Was it early? Yeah, but where pitching was going, I think that's what called for it. But after that, we're looking at your offense right now. It's Rizzo, Posey, and Devers are your top hitters, and I don't think that's getting it done, man.
Yeah, I don't think.
No, go ahead.
Cespedes is hurt, bro.
I mean, look, Cespedes, I got him seventh.
Oh, I skipped over Cespedes. I
Because
apologize.
if I got
You got Cespedes in the fifth
same
round.
range.
Cespedes, pick 5 in the fifth round. I totally skipped over Cespedes. I didn't even see that name there. I apologize. Yeah.
So I think Cespedes, if plays 130, 140 games, he's gonna give me what I need.
Mm-hmm.
I got Beltray at 120 or 1.
You got amazing value for Beltray, I believe. I was praising that pick before you came on, just as like an overview. I think that Beltray pick could pay off. Granted, he might get injured. You know, you never know. He's old. He might just fall off. But I think Beltray still has a lot left in the tank.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so I feel like with my bats, there is a lot of like older. Posey is over 30. Cespedes is 30. Like I usually don't go that route with them, but there was a lot of value as well that I kind of picked up there. Even Chris Davis, last pick of the draft, I'm like, if he gives me 35 home runs and just doesn't hit 180, he's gonna be the value. I got him 35 and 90.
Yeah.
Like he's probably a waiver pick, but I think I tried to kind of shore up the power late and kind of sacrificed all the things I was building up early. So that's why it's kind of a mess, because I picked up high average, low strikeout guys, Rizzo, Posey, Beltray, but then late I just kind of okay, I need power, so I kind of just sold out for power, and that's the issue with my team, is kind of figuring out who to trade for or who to make moves for that kind of mitigate the lack of power from my high average guys that I have early.
Yeah, absolutely. When I'm looking at your team right now, your offense is all over the place. You have Posey, and then you offset that VR, who's going to strike out over 200 times, and then Rosario strikes over 100 times if he has once he gets his playing time. Bruce strikes out a lot. Grichuk, these guys have like no on base either. But then you have a Fowler who gets on base at a 360 clip, and it's like, what the hell's going on? So looking at your team, it's up and down offensively. Pitching, you did a lot of good things, right? You have 4 closers on your team, 4 bona fide closers. Maybe not be the highest ratio guys, but I think you have a lot of upside in your pitching, aside from your solid top 4. The rest guys are guys that could ascend into that higher level. So I think your pitching is going to have to carry you at least until you get your offense situated. Pitching's only one half the game, though. And that's one of the main reasons why I don't like your team, because I just couldn't figure out what you were doing on offense. And there are a lot of teams that I've looked at that have a lot more relievers than you. So that could kind of cost you. You know what I mean? Most teams you'll beat with those relievers. But there are a few other teams, mine included, that could give you a headache in terms of that.
And even Ari picking up, I don't know if it was him or one that picked up Boxberg.
Yeah.
I was going to pick, I failed on my waiver pick because I only put like 2 or 3 for him.
Well, another thing I was discussing with the league, with the guys who called on, I asked them all the same question, is how do you feel about the new bidding system that was implemented this year?
I mean, I'm a little bit biased. I enjoy it, to be honest with you.
No,
I don't
yeah,
have a problem with it.
it's been mixed reaction so far. Just getting used to it. What I tried to express earlier was that we had a good trial run for 3 days, which helps, as opposed to it being, just we go right into the season. Waiver starts on Thursday. You got to have your shit ready by then. No, we've had 3 days now. We know how the bidding works. We know where some people's minds at. And I think it'll be, in the long run, a good thing. And if it doesn't work out, we just scrap it and we go back to the regular way next year.
No, yeah, definitely. Like that was ultimately always the goal, just to
Mhm.
try it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been so far. Like you said, we had a good time to mess with it. I mean, I felt like we picked up Brinson
Yeah, Brinson.
for free. You know what I mean? Like I thought that was somebody who, you know, like I was thinking right away we had to like start spending bread, but like we picked his ass up for free. He's about to start center field.
Yeah.
You know, so like, and then for like, I think now it's just gauging how much you're really trying to drop.
And depends on the player. If Willie Calhoun
Yeah,
gets
exactly.
called up tomorrow, or if Ian Desmond's hurt tomorrow, then people are gonna go crazy for the Ryan McMahons or Willie Calhoun. Then it's gonna be $100.
Exactly.
So we got to see how that works out. But I think it's gonna be beneficial.
That there should be no bitching about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So far, it's like you had your chance. Like now we're just gonna own up to it. So if you like it or not, you can't. It's not like taking it back. Like, oh, this is the reason I suck. Yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. You have a lot more power with the free agent system, and now it's in your hand. I think the best thing was the 11 a.m. time on it, where it's the same day. So you're getting that information that you might wake up to, as opposed to the West Coast games finishing at 1 o'clock and you don't know Puig ran into a wall or something and whatnot. So I think it definitely helps at that. But I've seen pretty solid reviews of it, and I think I personally like it. I haven't really taken advantage of it. I think I picked up Cole Calhoun today just because he's playing against the A's the first week. I think it's time to start looking at matchups because it's already Thursday. It's already Wednesday, and tomorrow's Thursday, so we can't wait. It's time to look at those matchups, start streaming pictures, and I think we really need to start getting active on that waiver wire. Wow, we have like 5 people who joined the call.
5 ladies.
What the hell happened here? Tonio, are you there?
Antonio's in the gym with his jump rope.
I don't believe Tone could talk about his team. He looks like he's at work and he can't talk about it. But George, are you still there?
Yeah,
Is there anything else you would like to say about your team? I think we kind of tackled the major issues and obstacles with your team and why I don't like them.
That's fine, bro. I agree. There's weaknesses on my offense. There's a lot of weaknesses on my offense. So,
Yo, fellas, I gotta go out. I gotta go to pick up my son from daycare.
All right, Ari.
But he was sad that he wasn't able to make the draft this year. You know what I mean?
Same.
Tough luck for you.
Next year, bro.
All right, bro. Take care. Peace.
Thank you for joining, Ari.
Bro.
All right, so since Antonio did join the call, I have no choice but to analyze his roster. George, you're more than welcome to stay on the line and be a co-host with me while you're on your lunch.
Okay, no problem.
And Juan, if you're there, it says you're here. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm actually driving to work, so I can listen.
It's like you listen to a podcast, huh?
Yeah, I know. Perfect.
So we're at a minute. We're at an hour and 20 minutes on this. I'm surprised my computer's still going. It didn't last an hour and 30 minutes on draft day before it died. We're gonna look through Tone's team now, just because man called in. So let me just find his team. I just want to thank you all for calling in because So I was actually talking about Tone's team right before I think Ari jumped in. Talking about how he got two first round talent players with Blackman and Lindor. I'm not sold on Donaldson. He was not on any of my draft boards at all, but that's because I think he's not gonna. Toronto, I don't think is gonna compete this year, and I don't think he's fully over that ankle injury. I just think I think it was an ankle. I believe it's an ankle. I just don't believe he's over with whatever it's ailing him.
I think it's a quad.
Is it a quad?
Something
Yeah.
lower body.
But looking at his strategy, he mimicked the same strategy that I had, where he went all hidden first. He didn't take his first pitch in until the 9th round, where he took my guy Lance McCullers, a guy who he also liked, who he traded for last year. And he was also the winner of the sweepstakes for Shohei Ohtani. I think I read the same article that he did about drafting, because he took the strategy that I read about. Not that I haven't been implemented in my own way and been doing it way before I read it, but I feel like he read an article where it talked about having these high strikeout mini aces that give you 140 innings of good work. He took Ohtani, he took McCullers, and he took Clevengers. Those were guys that were, and Morton, guys that were mentioned in that article. So I commend him for doing his research. Yeah, he really did his research this year because he's taken all the guys that these guys, the big industry experts love. So in terms of that, I mean, I can't fault him at all. Depending on how you feel about Miguel Cabrera, that's up to you. I think he's done. Joe's 100% accurate. Yo, that's hilarious. My phone is going to die in a second, actually. Holy crap. Give me a second. I got 3% on my battery. I'm going to have to find a charger around here. So I might have to.
Did you record any of this, or has it just been?
I've been recording for an hour and 20 minutes of this bullshit.
Right, that's dope. Bro, that's fantastic. We still got something to kind of look at later.
Oh, no, yeah. You're going to have the first person who called in was actually Jamie. So I did his recap first, but then he actually ditched me right away. And then Juan called in. We had a really good discussion. Tone, I'm going to continue with your team. Don't worry. I'm not done yet. I'm just trying to read on the chat what you were saying. But yeah.
Where did he pick up Cabrera? Like, how early?
He picked him up in the 8th round with the 5th pick. Now I want to hear everybody else. No, only if you call in do you hear everybody else, Tone. So that's not going to work. He picked up a few too many hurt players for my liking. He took Murphy in the 5th round. I think that was a little early for Murphy. I think he could have waited another round, but I get why he did it. Murphy comes back in 2 weeks or May. I think that's a great pick where he got him because Murphy was going in the 2nd or 3rd rounds where he would have normally been drafted. That's funny. You could hear Tony on the. Tony, you should mute your speaker. So just going off of what his draft was, he's got a ton of upside in pitching. Snell, Morton, Clevenger, even Ohtani. Man, this guy, he read all the articles. I'm surprised I hate his team so much, but I guess I just don't like the risk that he took with too many players. Because when you look at guys like McCutchen and Cabrera, they could be one foot out the door already when you actually think about it. And to me, those are two guys that I have taken that next step out the door and really not being fantasy relevant and being the next Victor Martinez, so to speak. Tommy Pham.
Yeah, but so I hear you talking good about Ohtani. You really think he has upside this year?
Okay, so the main topic, Ohtani. Personally, he was pitching in Arizona, right? What do we know about Arizona from anything? The spring training, yeah, the ball jumps, and they're not, and it's not there's no humidor in spring training. So where he was pitching, the ball is jumping off. A lot of guys that pitch down there in the spring, their numbers are inflated. It was like that last year. It's been like that consistently, and that's something that a lot of people don't take into account when they talk about spring training stats. It's something that I've learned quite, really often. That's kind of why I throw spring training stats out the window. So I think we need to take what he did with a grain of salt. Do I think Ohtani's ready? He's young. I think he's going to go through his growing pains. Do I think he should have been drafted in the 4th round like he was when he first came over? No. Do I think where he went is more of his true value? Yeah, I do. I agree. 120 is not late. I think that's the perfect spot for him. Really, I started thinking about him around there. Right, that's when he started popping up on my board because the projections. We'll use Steamer for example. They have him with a 3.28, I think ERA. I'm just going off the top of my head here. That's really low. You don't see that often. But then you have Zips, which is a little higher, and then you have these other sites that have their own crazy projection. ESPN had its own projection. So we're taking numbers from a guy we've never seen face Major League hitting. We just know what we saw in spring training, and what we saw in spring training wasn't great. I don't think him as a hitter, I'll put this out there, he's going to need to adjust. I think he's a 200 hitter right now. I think he's no better than a AA hitter, like just learning how to hit over here. That's Ohtani. I'm trying to keep up with the chat as well. So that's what I feel about Otani. I don't know if I'm right. I've been wrong before. There's players that I've been wrong before on, but I just don't think Otani, the hitter, is ready. The pitcher, I think he has a lot of raw stuff that he might have. I think he's going to be a 4.1 ERA kind of guy, but he's going to have his growing pains. But he'll put a couple of starts together, and then they're going to feature him on ESPN, and he's going to be like, "Look what Otani did." You know what I mean?
I feel you, bro. Thank you for.
I don't know how you feel. If you want to chime in, or I'll just continue. I think Tone did get too many hurt players. Where you have Salazar, you have Turner, you have Murphy. I think you needed to balance that out, especially early in the season. Unless you plan on losing to me right away, which I totally get. I mean, it's a tough week 1 matchup for you, but we only have 1 DL spot, and I don't know if you knew that or not going into it. But you got to plan accordingly. I planned according. I know a few people who planned accordingly. You got to make sure you check the rules when you do that, Tone. Because then you're going to be sitting with 2 guys on your bench that you're really going to need to get some either volume stats or some pitch, just volume, honestly. There's still some pretty solid players out there in free agency, just looking at it. But I can't really hate too much on your roster, considering that I took the same strategy as you. Yeah, Hanley's gonna be in a platoon with Mitch Moreland. He doesn't have anywhere to play. He's a DH. I wouldn't be crazy about him. I believe he was dropped by Alexis because we tore him apart because he drafted Nelson Cruz and Hanley. But if Hanley does jump back, he could be, he might be one of those guys that are just, just have that Victor Martinez season. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you shouldn't hold on to him. Hanley Ramirez is not done. He's still, I believe, 33, 34 maybe. He's not going to steal bases like he used to, but there's still potential. There's still a lot in that bat. It's just whether he's healthy or not. We remember him. He was 2 years removed from having a killer second half. I remember him hitting walk-off home runs against the Yankees not too long ago. So it's fresh in the memory. But yeah, looking at your team, it's not a bad team. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? No, because you're the manager. I think you overmanage yourself into a corner with the DL, and I think you might have given yourself too much of a hole to dig out of. But if your pitchers ascend to the next level, man, the sky's the limit. All you need is 2 of those guys to hit. You are learning. I give you that. I appreciate the work you did. I'm pretty sure you're at your computer reading articles and listening to podcasts all during the day, just like I do.
Nah, bro, he stepped his game up.
He did.
Basketball too, bro. He's not just winging it anymore.
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't know what podcast you listen to, but I'm pretty sure you listen to the same ones I do, if not more. But I could definitely appreciate the work you put in just from this list of sleepers you have. Hell, Josh Bell in the 14th round, man. I think that might be one of the best picks of the year. And I'm not a Josh Bell guy. I'm only coming on recently with Josh Bell. I remember him as a high average, low strikeout guy in the minors. Next thing you know, he's popping 26 home runs last year or something crazy. Yonder Alonso in the 20th, it's insane. You got great value late. I don't think Rodney, we don't know what the hell he's going to do. Barraclough might be the closer right after Ziegler drops it out. I love Zach Cozart. I think you know how good Zach Cozart is because you had him on your roster last year. I think he's one of the most underrated players alone in real baseball, but forget fantasy. He's an amazing player that nobody ever talks about at drafts. And it's a shame that I don't draft him more because I know what he could be. You have a playoff team. It's just you I'm worried about that you might get too bored with baseball or whatnot. So as long as you stay committed and you make the right moves, I think you have a good chance to make the playoffs. So all you got to do is just stay consistent. There's not much I would change with this team.
Nah, I think patient is the thing with him because he always trades. He makes irresponsible trades midway through.
Yeah, he gets too impatient. It's good you don't have guys like Dozier or somebody like that that's going to be boring and only hit in the second half. I think that's the biggest benefit you have because with the boring players, they're hard to roster. There are a few players still like that out there. But I think you have the perfect the perfect team for what you are, which is all high upside, and even the McCutcheon and Cabrera picks, you're drafting them based on they used to be first rounders no less than 2 years ago. Miggy was a first rounder last year in some formats, so I don't think you have any of those boring guys. And I think if your team plays to the potential, they'll be the best team in the league, bar none. And I think that's high praise, and that's a lot of appreciation for the draft you had and the research you did. So I give you that, man. Really fun to watch. They are fun to watch. I'm not sure if you're talking about me or you're talking about your team, but obviously you really can't talk about your team. I think I almost touched every team minus the Ruiz. Shit, I kind of did. Gus's team, I spoke a little about what they did. I talked about Darwinson. And I haven't talked about Gil's team. We could talk about Gil's team real fast since we're already an hour and 30 minutes in. He took hitters with his first 3 picks. He took Betts, Springer, and Seager. I'm not crazy about the George Springer pick, but that's because I'm not a big. A lot of people remember what he did last year in the playoffs because they all follow that storyline, and him being the MVP. I think he should have been a 4th round pick. That's just me, but he's in the best lineup in baseball. He's with the best team in baseball, so it's not a crazy pick there. Seager going in the 3rd round. I've seen him fall further than that. We haven't seen Seager put it together yet. And I think that's the problem. We don't know what Seager is yet. We know what he can be, but we haven't seen him stay healthy, and he hasn't warranted that pick, if you understand what I'm saying. It's like Puig a few years back when he was going around the Harper range in the 3rd round with Cespedes. We knew what Puig could be in that small sample size, but we never seen him put it together. And he never has put it together quite since. So kind of like that player. If he puts it together, it'll be a 1st rounder, but we're still banking on a lot of potential we haven't cashed in on yet. Let's look at this. Robinson Cano in the 6th round. That's a great pick. I think Cano was rising on my draft board when you took him, Gil. And so I think you got great value on him, considering that a lot of players went before him. Tommy Pham went before him. It's hard to look at this right now. Jonathan Scope went before him. So this is a little second base kind of guys. Let's see who else. Garrett Cole went before him. Yeah, Garrett Cole. If you saw my picks before, you know I'm not a fan of from the video. For those that are watching live and listening, Garrett Cole is not my favorite player this year. I think he shouldn't even have been in the 6th round. I don't think he's an ace. I don't think he's a 2. I don't think he's a 3. I think he's highly overrated because of where he went. Sonny Gray this year, just talking about him, I'm not big on him. I think he's overrated. I think because he's on the Yankees, people think he's magically better now. We got to remember 2 years ago, this guy was hurt and he couldn't get anybody out. And he was pitching in a pitcher's park. Granted, that defense didn't help him out much. They didn't have a Didi Gregorius up the middle. But at the same time, I'm just not sold on him. He didn't pitch well at Yankee Stadium last year, especially toward the end of it. I just don't think he deserves the hype that he could get. I'd much rather have Jordan Montgomery, if you were asking me right now. My players. Looking at this, Carlos Santana, I love that pick in the 9th round. I think Santana's going to hit 30 bombs at some point this year. I think he's going to do that with a 400 on base, and I think that lineup around him is really good with Hoskins and even at the top of it. You have Hernandez who gets on base at a 370 clip. I'm talking to Joe.
Do you think, here's a legitimate question.
Yeah, please.
Santana, and I like him a lot too. But do you think, yes, his on base is always 370, 380, which is amazing. But do you think he gets his actual batting average up around 260 again, or is that something that Like, he's done. He's past his prime type of situation. At least with batting average.
I think when he came up in the minors, he was actually 300, 330 hitter. And this whole thing about him, and then he was a second half player. I'm sure I remember you owning him in the second half of a year or so, when he went crazy.
I loved him in the past. So
right. So you remember him.
Yeah.
I think he's in a better hitter environment. Some of the pitchers he's going to face from the Marlins and Braves, they're not so good. Granted, the Mets and the Nationals have much better rotations if you're looking at that, but I think he's going to get his average. I don't think 260 is much asking from him. I think he has a legitimate shot to not only hit 30 home runs, I think he could be a 260, 400 guy. And that's not really asking much. I think he's going to have a breakout year. He's going to show people why he signed for that contract. And if the Phillies are competing, I think he's going to be one of the reasons why. So I'm in on him this year. Maybe not this league because of the average, but I don't think 260 is not realistic.
But just to chime in on that, he hasn't hit 260 in a better lineup with worse pitching, like facing worse pitching. So
right.
Why would he hit 60 now?
That's a good question. Mainly because you only succeed in 25% of the time. I don't think there's a reason why he can't. You know what I mean? There's nothing that I have that could support it. That he's always been what he has been. He's what, a 240 hitter, 250 in that range. I could go into depth about him right now since we're on the topic. Just trying to look it up right now. Why is it showing me projections?
I feel like he sacrifices his average in order to get the walks and to get the power. So
right.
That's why his average is low.
Damn, this is not showing me anything. Stats, because I'm looking at projections. Yeah, so let's look at him. He hit 260 last year. He hit 260 the last 259 each of the last 2 years in 2016 and 2017. I think the biggest thing that we need to actually like about him is that he hasn't played less than 150 games in his career. The last 5 years, he's been 154, 152, 154, 158, 154 again. I mean, he's been on the field all that time. And his
Yeah, I'm about to sign off because I'm about to get on the train. But
all right, George.
This was fun. Let's do this again.
Well, you're gonna call tonight. Damn, did I lose everybody?
I'm still here.
Oh, sweet. So yeah, I mean, he's a 260 hitter now, and that was just the top of my head. 2 years ago, his sophomore and his third year, he was a 230 hitter, but he's been a 260 hitter since.
I guess I've always thought of him as a 230 hitter, but just high on base percentage.
Yeah.
But I guess hopefully he can keep it up. But
yeah.
I like his style of play.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what happens with you and I both, or in fantasy plays in general. We've been playing so long that you remember their years from like 2 or 3 years ago, and then you think of them, that's what they are. I think that's happened to me more than enough times. And there'll be times when I go back, I don't remember Joey Gallo hitting over 40 home runs last year. I just don't remember it. It happened, and I was paying attention, but I did not know that. And I always assumed, or Byron Buxton, I always remember him for his first half 2 years ago where he did nothing. So sometimes you just get that bias in your head, and it's hard to get that out of it because you held him for the whole year and you had a 230 average, and you're like, this guy killed me actually instead of helped me. Meanwhile, now he's hitting 260 every year, and it's like, when did he do this?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think Michael Wacha this year, I think a lot of people are underrating him since we're on the topic of Gil's team. I think Wacha has a chance to put together a solid campaign. For some reason, I feel like St. Louis is going to be back. I think they're going to, I don't know if it's them having Ozuna, considering I don't even like Ozuna this year. I just feel really good about their team this year in St. Louis. They still have one of the best defensive catchers and managers, of a rotation. So I guess that's kind of why I'm always biased toward St. Louis pitchers, because they have Molina. So I think that's definitely one of the things that I've always had a bias of. Kind of like how people have the bias with Pittsburgh and Ray Searage. I have the bias of if they have a good catcher, a guy that's actually really good with the staff, that those pitchers are really going to like escalate to the next level or be better than they are even capable of. That's kind of why I'm so high on Luke Weaver. I'm even thinking about Miles Mikolas and Jack Flaherty just for that reason, just because I know they have Yachty behind them. Just a few names I'm throwing out there. It's kind of one of the reasons why I don't like the Mets because they have d'Arnaud. I don't think he's that good of a manager in terms of that. But that's why if you look at the Houston guys, they said the biggest reason why they won last year was because they had Brian McCann managing that rotation. He didn't do anything in terms of the actual offense and actually contributing, but managing that staff and helping them out, I think that's a reason why they won the World Series, and they attribute to him. That's what's actually been said. We're getting ready to wrap up here. I'm at an hour and 40, and it's about an hour longer than I actually anticipated. But I do appreciate everybody calling in. I'll just throw some general ideas. I'm not going to look at this anymore in terms of like going through the teams and that. I'm going to be biased and I say that I have the best team, but my pitching is spotty. I'm really relying heavily on relievers. I'm big on position eligibility. I think Marwin Gonzalez was an important get for me where I got him. I think Matt Carpenter bounces back. I think I'm just going by what he said, how he's going back and changing his approach. I think if you're still drafting, probably not, or you have a chance to make a trade for Carpenter for that reason. And Ciarte is one of the main reasons I win my leagues every year. He's boring. He's set it and forget it. But honestly, you need guys like that in some of these leagues for the simple fact that boring guys win championships sometimes. And if you have a guy that you can plug and play for 155, that's going to hit you 300, steal you 20 bags, score 100 runs, don't you want that? And I think I get my sentiments of how I feel about Sterling Marte and Xander Bogaerts this year. I think these are the year they extend to the top 20 guys, and I think they're really going to break out this year. That's just a personal belief. I think Travis Shaw's in that list too. And I think Mancini is going to be a top 50 player as well. There's a couple guys I like. I haven't had the luxury of having Altuve anywhere really. Juan, are you still on the call? No, I think Juan dropped. So I haven't had the luxury of having Altuve, so it's going to be a pleasure to see what he can do again, and actually like having that stable cog in my lineup. But this year was a fun year, honestly, to draft. I enjoyed it. I did it. Once again, Alexis, we appreciate you hosting on giving us, just opening your doors and let us have the draft and talk baseball. Baseball is a beautiful sport. It's going to be amazing to watch. Once I get home from work tomorrow, I'm leaving at 12 on the dot, coming home and watching baseball the whole day. And it's literally like Christmas Day tomorrow, part 2, because draft day was part 1. It's just really fun to watch baseball, and it's like in fantasy. Has fantasy not been involved with it, it probably wouldn't be as much. It definitely wouldn't be as much fun. But it just adds to the mystique. You know what I mean? It adds to that flavor. It's almost like gambling, except you have a rooted interest in the game more because your pitcher's pitching and you want to see how he does. You invested something in it. It's like you drafted him. It's just really good to watch, and I hope all you guys could get to watch over the weekend and this week and tomorrow, and just following that fantasy cast. I follow it on my phone all the time. I'm watching it when the games are going on. I'm watching to see how my players are doing. That's what makes fantasy so fun. You learn about players that you wouldn't know outside of the game, and I think that's the biggest part of it, and it's a distraction. We have a lot of crap going on in our lives. We all go through some stuff. On top of that, we all have work. We're all surrounded by bills. It's a negative world out there with the shit that goes on, and it helps not kind of distract us, and it gives us something that we enjoy and we love to do. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love fantasy baseball. I love fantasy and anything in general, but it's something that I take a lot of pride in. And it's something I enjoy, and this league is one of the things I enjoy the most. I wouldn't do a draft video for 2 hours of my life for no reason. So that should say something. Honestly, your team my team could get hurt all in the first week of the season, and then my draft means shit. That could happen to anybody that I said here. But I'm about to sign off. I probably got 4 more minutes on this thing anyway until my computer dies. But it was amazing having this. I didn't expect the kind of participation that I did get, and which was shocking. I really didn't want to make it this long because I figured it's gonna be tough to watch, if for no other reason. I hope you guys can watch bits and pieces. If I didn't get to your team, I mean, I didn't think I'd be on the call this long. I do appreciate the participation, and I do hope you guys like the video. It's going to take a while to upload if it's an hour and 40 minutes, or 50 minutes. I can't even break it up into little parts because I don't even know what part was which. And, I just hope everything came through clear because there's no second doing this. You can't get this analysis anywhere else. If you're drafting with me later tonight, you have a little insight of the kind of players I like. So that's going to be fun. Maybe I won't post it until then. But I did this draft because I'm your league champion. You deserve it. It's a fun league. I think this is everybody's. The other leagues that they're in, they're not quite like this, no matter what you say. There's a lot of rivalries. There's a lot of trash talk. There's a lot of love, most importantly. And there's a lot of gamesmanship and one-upmanship where you want to be the next champion. You just want to be better than that guy. I know I'm the New York Yankees of this league. I hate I am what I hate. It is what it is. I get that. I know everybody wants to take me out. I know I get everybody's best matchup. Nobody takes it easy on me. And I don't want that. I really try to put my best foot forward. I try to draft the best team that I think I can. I go with different strategies, and everybody has their own different strategies, and I appreciate everybody for what they bring to the table. I wish we had a lot more idiots in our drafts because I feel like the level of expertise in this league is up here. It really used to be down here, but it's really risen to the top. Just seeing a few of the people's drafts and just analyzing people who I thought didn't know as much as they did about baseball really have upped their game, so it makes it much more competitive, and it's not an easy cakewalk just to be in first place or make the playoffs anymore. So I think we're going to see a lot more parity in this league as opposed to other leagues where I know I'm making the playoffs and there's just nothing that's going to change that, and I have supreme confidence in that, knowing that I'm going to make the playoffs and at least make some noise. Whereas this one, it might be tough to just make the playoffs. But with that, I'm going to sign off. It was fun. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to you. I know it's 5 o'clock, but I got to pick up my fiance soon from work, so got a lot of work to do today. I just want to say it's been fun. I look forward to having a good year. I'm losing my voice. Got to save it for later. I have a draft at 9 today with a few of the guys in this league. I look forward to that. I'll be talking to you then. I'll give some insights if I still have a voice. And I just can't wait for opening day. I can't wait to talk shit. Much love to everybody out there. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if I win again next year, it's going to be the same thing, man. It's going to be the same problem. So here's to hoping that I make another one next year, and then with the intent to having to make this again next year. So guys, signing off. Your league champ, Joe. Enjoy. Much love. Good luck, everybody, this year.